Imagine a world entirely populated by sophisticated machines, a silent and frozen sphere where no biological heart has ever beaten. Millions of miles away from the warmth of our sun, a profound transformation has quietly unfolded across a vast rust-coloured desert. We have seeded an entire planet with metallic explorers, creating a robotic society that wanders the ancient dust in absolute, eerie isolation. Picture a tiny, delicate spirit of carbon fibre and silicon, resting in perfectly engineered dormancy as it survives a violent plunge through an alien atmosphere. Tucked securely beneath the heavy undercarriage of a nuclear behemoth, this small stowaway waits patiently for its moment to break the gravitational tether of a new world. When it finally spins its blades, it will make history in complete and utter silence, flying through skies that have been empty since the dawn of time. Deep within the winding, rocky channels carved by catastrophic floods billions of years ago, the first creeping steps of humanity were taken by a pioneer no larger than a microwave. This fragile emissary crawled at a glacial pace, turning every centimetre of progress into a slow, deliberate meditation on the sheer scale of the cosmos. Its metal wheels pressed delicate patterns into virgin soil, leaving tracks that will remain undisturbed for millions of years under the pale salmon-colored heavens. Surprisingly, the mind does not need to cross the terrifying freezing ocean of interplanetary space to experience these monumental triumphs. You are perfectly grounded in the heavy, comforting warmth of your own sanctuary, far removed from the biting cold and abrasive winds of the Martian surface. Here, in the quiet dark of your room, you are safe, and these wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep. If we were to look closer at the sky tonight, that distant red point of light would slowly resolve into a landscape of breathtaking, rugged beauty waiting to be explored. Let the tension drain completely from your muscles as your breathing synchronizes with the slow, rhythmic pulse of a world waiting in the dark. Out on the desolate expanse of the Ares Vallis floodplain, a profound silence reigned for billions of years until the arrival of a tiny mechanical pioneer. Out on the desolate expanse of the Ares Vallis floodplain, a profound silence reigned for billions of years until the arrival of a tiny mechanical pioneer. This vast rocky channel, carved by ancient catastrophic floods, became the ultimate stage for humanity's first creeping steps on another world. Against the staggering backdrop of towering crater rims and endless rust-coloured debris, the scale of our ambition was contained within a remarkably modest vessel. Sojourner was no larger than a standard microwave oven, a delicate assemblage of gleaming metal and silicon dropped into an unforgiving wasteland. It looked almost fragile against the brutalist architecture of the Martian surface, yet it carried the immense weight of human ingenuity across the interplanetary void. The stark contrast between the colossal empty basin and the tiny six-wheeled emissary highlighted the audacity of the endeavour. Moving with an agonizingly beautiful grace, the robotic explorer redefined the very concept of traversing a landscape. There was no rush to devour the miles, no roaring engine to conquer the alien valleys with brute force or terrifying velocity. Instead, it crawled at a maximum speed of just 1 centimetre per second, transforming its exploration into a slow, deliberate meditation on the nature of distance. To observe its progress was to watch a metallic tortoise navigating a sea of jagged crimson rocks and rippling sand. It advanced with a cautious reverence, treating every pebble and microscopic ridge as a monumental obstacle, worthy of absolute respect. Such a glacial pace allowed the onboard instruments to fully absorb the stark, silent beauty of the surrounding wasteland without missing a single geological nuance. Time itself seemed to dilate around the creeping machine, stretching seconds into agonizing minutes as it plotted its microscopic path forward. The soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder provided the only rhythmic pulse to its quiet, solitary journey. Through this crawling meditation, the rover achieved a profound intimacy with the Martian surface, learning the secrets of the dust one painstaking millimetre at a time. Engineering a vehicle for an untouched world required a fundamental shift in how we interact with the ground beneath our feet. The engineers on Earth understood that to aggressively plough through the Martian terrain would be to erase the very history they sought to uncover. Therefore, they crafted a unique suspension system that granted the machine an almost insect-like agility and protective grace. Instead of bulldozing obstacles out of the way, the wheels were explicitly designed to gently roll over rocks of various sizes. Each independent wheel could rise and fall, conforming perfectly to the chaotic, uneven geometry of the ancient floodplain without disturbing the deep slumber of the stones. The rover essentially tiptoed across the jagged landscape, maintaining a fragile balance as it shifted its weight with mathematical precision. Behind this gentle traverse, the soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder left a trail of delicate tread marks. These intricate patterns, stamped into the virgin soil, became the first artificial fossils ever created on the fourth planet from the Sun. They stood as a quiet testament to a philosophy of exploration based on respect rather than conquest, preserving the silent dignity of the rocks. Life for this mechanical entity was entirely dependent on the distant burning star that hung small and pale in the alien sky. Without the thick, comforting atmosphere of Earth to scatter the light, the sun appeared as a sharp, intense pinprick fighting through a perpetual haze of suspended dust. This muted sunlight held the key to every movement, every photograph, and every faint whisper transmitted back to the anxiously waiting creators. A flat, dark solar panel crowned the top of the rover, acting as an artificial leaf turning its face toward the weak illumination. It drank in the scattered photons with desperate efficiency, converting the meagre ambient light into the vital electrical current needed to wake the dormant circuits. Every morning brought a slow, shivering resurrection as the battery banks filled, stirring the silicon mind from its freezing nighttime paralysis. The energy budget was brutally strict, forcing the tiny explorer to carefully ration its movements beneath the butterscotch-coloured heavens. Every soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder was purchased with hours of patient sunbathing in the frigid air. It was a fragile existence, deeply tethered to the rhythmic celestial dance of a hazy sun moving across an empty, silent sky. Communication across the vast, freezing ocean of interplanetary space is governed by the absolute, unbreakable laws of physics and the speed of light. When the engineers in the control room sent a command, the invisible radio waves embarked on a silent, millions of miles-long sprint through the terrifying void. Earth operators had to endure an agonizing wait of 10 minutes, just to see if their distant emissary had received the instruction. This staggering time delay transformed the act of driving the rover into a slow, tense game of blind chess played across the solar system. There could be no quick corrections, no sudden tapping of the brakes if the machine inadvertently steered toward a treacherous shadowy crater. The operators had to project their minds into the future, anticipating the outcome of every commanded soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder. Such a profound lag enforced a rhythm of extreme patience upon absolutely everyone involved in the unprecedented mission. It forced humanity to slow its frantic, earthly pace and adopt the vast geologic timescale of the celestial bodies themselves. Every successful turn, every captured image, was a hard-won victory in a conversation where a single pause stretched into an eternity. Arrival on the red planet was not a matter of controlled, fiery descent, but rather an exercise in calculated, chaotic resilience. To survive the blistering plunge through the thin atmosphere, the entire spacecraft was encased in a massive protective cocoon of woven synthetic fabric. As it neared the surface, explosive charges rapidly inflated a cluster of giant airbags, transforming the lander into a colossal, geometric bouncing ball. Striking the rocky ground at tremendous speed, the airbags rebounded high into the sky, violently shedding the immense kinetic energy of the interplanetary voyage. The bizarre structure skipped and tumbled wildly across the Ares Vallis, a completely alien shape careening through an ancient dried-up riverbed. Gradually, the chaotic leaping subsided into smaller hops, until the deflating fabric finally dragged the payload to a complete silent rest. When the petal-like doors of the lander eventually peeled open, the tiny rover was finally exposed to the freezing, arid environment. The transition from the violent, bouncing arrival to the eventual soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder was a masterpiece of engineering contrast. Out of the chaos of the landing, a delicate, creeping elegance emerged to claim its rightful place on the silent plains. Twilight on this desolate sphere brings a beautiful but lethal transformation to the environment as the weak heat of the day vanishes into the cosmos. Without a thick blanket of greenhouse gases to trap the warmth, the temperature plummets with terrifying speed the moment the sun dips below the jagged horizon. The environment swiftly shifts from merely freezing to a brutal, biting cold that threatens to shatter brittle metal and freeze delicate electronics solid. To survive this nightly assault, the machine was programmed to retreat into itself, shutting down all non-essential functions to conserve its precious thermal energy. It entered a quiet, protective sleep mode, relying on small, specialized heaters to keep its silicon heart just warm enough to endure the darkness. In this dormant state, the rover became indistinguishable from the silent frozen stones that surrounded it in the inky blackness. During these long, brutal nights, the soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder was entirely absent from the soundscape. The tiny explorer simply waited in a state of suspended animation, a metallic ghost haunting the ancient floodplain beneath a canopy of brilliant unblinking stars. Only the eventual return of the pale morning light would coax it back to the slow, crawling world of the active and living. Amidst a chaotic scattering of debris from a long-forgotten flood, one particular boulder captured the undivided attention of the earthly scientists. This large, two-toned rock stood out against the monotonous rust-coloured soil, offering a tantalising glimpse into the violent geological history of the region. The team affectionately named it Yogi, and it became the primary obsession of the creeping miniature laboratory for a significant portion of its lifespan. Day after day, the machine navigated the treacherous few meters separating it from its lander to press its instruments against the weathered surface of the stone. It deployed its specialized spectrometer, utilizing alpha particles and X-rays to quietly decipher the chemical fingerprint locked within the ancient frozen minerals. This excruciatingly slow, intimate interrogation of a single silent boulder was the spectacular culmination of decades of dreaming and earthly engineering. The gentle approach required absolute precision, culminating in the soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder as it parked millimeters from the target. Yogi offered no resistance, silently surrendering the secrets of its volcanic origins to the patient, probing senses of the alien intruder. Together, the rock and the rover formed a strange, enduring tableau of scientific discovery in the middle of a vast wasteland. The atmosphere of this arid world is never truly still, constantly churning microscopic particles of iron oxide into a permanent suspended haze. This pervasive dust is the inescapable reality of the environment, coating absolutely everything in a uniform, rusty veneer over the passage of time. Slowly, inexorably, the brilliant silver and gold surfaces of the earthly machine began to vanish beneath a relentless accumulation of the powdery soil. As the days dragged into weeks, the dark, gleaming rectangle of the solar array gradually muted into a dull, brownish red hue. This settling dust threatened to choke off the vital supply of sunlight, slowly starving the intricate electrical systems of their life-giving energy. Yet there was a profound poetic justice in the process, as the alien environment slowly reclaimed the shiny, artificial intruder that had disturbed its peace. Even the tracks left by the soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder began to soften and fade under the constant invisible rain of particles. The rover was no longer a stark, gleaming anomaly standing out against the rugged landscape, but was slowly becoming a natural extension of the terrain itself. It was a slow, beautiful surrender to the elements as the planet gently embraced its tiny mechanical visitor. Decades have passed since the final, faint transmission rippled across the solar system, severing the invisible tether between the creators and their creation. The tiny machine, its batteries long frozen and its circuits permanently silenced, has completely ceased its slow, deliberate creeping across the rocky plains. It rests exactly where it stopped, locked in an eternal frozen pose before the sprawling majesty of the Ares Vallis basin. Even today it sits completely undisturbed under the pale, rust-coloured sky, immune to the decay that plagues organic life. Without moisture or oxygen to rust its frame, and with winds too weak to topple it, the hardware remains perfectly preserved in the freezing arid vacuum. It has transitioned from an active explorer into a profound historical artifact, resting perfectly intact in an open-air planetary museum. No longer will the silence be broken by the soft crunch of a metallic wheel pressing into fine red powder. It stands now purely as a permanent monument to human curiosity, a physical manifestation of our burning desire to reach out and touch the unknown. For millions of years to come, it will remain there, waiting patiently in the dark for the day its creators might finally come to find it. Waiting patiently in the dark, humanity's longing to find what lies beyond did not end with a single stationary monument. The immense paradigm-shifting success of the first creeping pioneer ignited a much bolder dream, leading directly to the creation of two magnificent successors built to wander the lonely, expansive plains. Spirit and Opportunity were identical twins, forged together in pristine earthly cleanrooms but destined to live out their operational lives completely separated by a barren, rusted globe. Sent to opposite sides of the planet, these sophisticated robotic siblings represented a spectacular, ambitious doubling of our mechanical presence in the silent void. They were heavily armed with an array of advanced geological tools, designed not just to survive the harsh elements, but to truly interrogate the complex alien terrain over vast, sweeping distances. As they plummeted toward the surface inside their protective shells, the golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise was merely a promised vision of the brilliant light they would soon chase. Though constructed from the exact same intricate blueprints, their isolated, widely separated landing zones ensured they would experience completely different environmental realities. One would face rugged, treacherous craters littered with volcanic basalt, while the other would find itself navigating endless rolling seas of hematite-rich sand. Together, they transformed the isolated, stationary endeavour of their predecessor into a highly synchronized, sweeping global campaign of planetary exploration. Deep within the sprawling, ancient impact basin of Gusev Crater, a harsh and jagged reality quickly confronted the first twin as it began its trek. Spirit found itself operating in a geologically chaotic zone, constantly battling a rugged, unpredictable landscape that relentlessly tested the extreme limits of its intricate suspension and drive systems. Over time, the brutal, unforgiving terrain claimed a heavy toll, causing one of the front wheels to seize completely and permanently refuse to turn. Rather than signalling the tragic end of the costly expedition, this devastating mechanical failure was ingeniously adapted into a brand new, highly effective method of discovery. The crippled rover was commanded to drive backward, laboriously dragging the paralysed heavy wheel through the compacted dirt like a makeshift metallic agricultural plough. This slow, agonisingly scraping limp across the landscape unintentionally dug a deep, continuous trench through the topsoil, forcefully peeling back the oxidised, weathered crusts. Hidden just beneath the dull, monotonous red surface, the dragged wheel exposed a stunning streak of brilliant, pure white silica to the thin open air. This dazzling material, typically formed only in the presence of boiling hot springs or active volcanic steam vents, offered spectacular, irrefutable evidence of a wet, highly dynamic past. The golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise illuminated a groundbreaking, paradigm-shifting geological discovery born entirely out of an unfortunate mechanical accident. Halfway across the world, a vastly different, almost hypnotic environment awaited the second wanderer as it traversed an expansive, silent ocean of wind-sculpted sand. Tracing the undulating, mathematically precise ripples of a vast dune field called El Dorado became Opportunity's quiet, mesmerizing task for several uninterrupted, lonely weeks. The sweeping, rhythmic patterns of the dunes looked remarkably like the frozen solid waves of a terrestrial desert, completely untouched by the destructive forces of rain or vegetation. Navigating this mesmerizing, shifting topography required extreme caution, as the powdery, unstable ridges threatened to trap the heavy vehicle with every single rotation of its wheels. The rover moved with a delicate, weaving precision, carefully studying the intricate sorting of coarse grains and fine dust dictated entirely by the ancient, persistent atmospheric currents. Each high-resolution photograph sent back across the void revealed a spectacular, hypnotic geometry of sharp shadows and bright light playing across the sweeping sandy crests. Take a slow, deep breath and let the tension drain completely from your shoulders, sinking deeper into the quiet, unchanging comfort of your own space. As you relax, picture the golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise, silently observing this endless, frozen sea of ripples. The machine patiently read the wind's ancient memory written in the shifting sand, translating the silent landscape into a profound story of planetary climate. Surprisingly, the incredibly arid atmosphere provided its own bizarre form of salvation for the struggling machines, as their vital energy reserves periodically dwindled to critical levels. The relentless, invisible accumulation of airborne particles was a constant, looming threat, slowly suffocating the vital power systems as the cold months dragged endlessly on. Yet, the very wind that delivered the suffocating, powdery dust also carried the miraculous, violent means of their sudden, completely unexpected resurrection. Towering, chaotic vortices of swirling air, known as dust devils, would occasionally sweep across the barren plains with a ghostly, unpredictable grace. When one of these towering, invisible funnels happened to pass directly over a creeping rover, the intense, localized winds acted like a massive, gentle atmospheric brush. The swirling, low-pressure vortex would violently strip the accumulated debris from the flat, dark panels, sweeping the delicate power-generating surfaces completely and miraculously clean. Following these sudden, shocking encounters with the Martian weather, electrical power levels would instantly spike, breathing vibrant new life into the aging, exhausted hardware. The golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise would be restored to its original blinding brilliance, ready to absorb the day. It was a beautiful, entirely symbiotic dance between the hostile environment and the artificial invaders, where the planet occasionally provided the exact care the machines desperately needed. As the distant sun dipped lower toward the jagged rim of a crater, the sky did not burn with the fiery oranges and deep reds we naturally expect. Instead, the celestial dome slowly transitioned from a dusty, washed-out salmon pink to an icy, piercingly cold sapphire blue right at the glowing horizon. The fine dust absorbs the blue light during the day, but allows those cooler wavelengths to shine straight through the thicker atmospheric cross-section at a very low angle. Witnessing this alien dusk through the artificial lenses of the rovers evokes a profound, unshakable sense of immense distance and magnificent, absolute isolation. The golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise eventually surrenders entirely to this deepening, profoundly cold and beautiful blue twilight. Each recorded silent sunset serves as a quiet, stunning visual reminder that these tireless explorers are operating under an entirely different set of planetary rules. Sometimes, the incredibly chaotic, unpredictable variables of interplanetary descent perfectly align to produce a singular moment of unbelievable, almost mathematically impossible fortune. Rolling perfectly into Eagle Crater right at the precise moment of landing was a stroke of immense quiet and profound luck for the second twin. After bouncing wildly and uncontrollably across the dark, incredibly flat plain of Meridiani Planum, the massive protective airbags happened to drop the payload squarely inside a small, shallow depression. When opportunity finally unfurled its solar wings and opened its cameras, it did not see the expected endless, flat, featureless horizon of the vast plains. Rather, it stared directly at the exposed, beautifully layered bedrock of the crater walls immediately surrounding its lander in every single direction. This was an unprecedented geological jackpot, instantly providing direct, immediate access to ancient sedimentary rock without having to drive a single, painstaking inch. Allow your breathing to find a steady, completely effortless rhythm, letting your busy mind float freely alongside these distant, silent and monumental triumphs. Imagine waking up in that perfectly positioned crater, the golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise as the magnificent bedrock came sharply into focus. The rover had essentially sunk a cosmic hole in one, landing exactly where the most crucial, eagerly anticipated scientific secrets were patiently waiting to be read. Fascinated by the exposed, layered outcrops within its incredibly lucky landing site, the machine moved closer to meticulously inspect the strange, granular texture of the stone. Complex robotic arms extended slowly and deliberately, taking thousands of microscopic images of tiny, perfectly spherical rocks deeply embedded in the cliff faces and scattered across the dusty ground. These peculiar, incredibly uniform formations, roughly the size of earthly peppercorns, were affectionately nicknamed blueberries by the astounded, joyous science team back in Mission Control. These little dark spheres were certainly not organic in origin, but rather incredibly dense concretions of hematite, a specific mineral that typically precipitates out of slowly moving mineral-rich water. As the softer, surrounding sedimentary rock slowly eroded away over the relentless eons, the much harder hematite spheres were left behind, accumulating on the surface like thousands of scattered marbles. They stood as the undeniable, hard, physical remnants of a specific ancient time when the entire vast region was completely soaked in a shallow, briny and acidic sea. Every single microscopic image beamed across the terrifying void added another crucial piece of hard, indisputable evidence to the growing narrative of a once watery, potentially habitable world. The golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise reflected softly off these dark, polished little spheres, highlighting their perfect, mysterious and alien geometry. The tiny blueberries stood alone as silent, enduring witnesses to a vast, ancient ocean that had completely evaporated billions of years before the arrival of the curious machine. Even the most spectacular, paradigm-shifting scientific discoveries had to be routinely abandoned as the unforgiving planetary rotation dictated the absolute strict terms of mechanical survival. Shadows grew incredibly long and stark as the cautious rovers automatically powered down every single evening, preparing to endure the bitter, metal-shattering cold of the alien night. The transition from the relatively warm, active daylight hours to the terrifying, freezing darkness was a rapid, dramatic shift that demanded absolute, uncompromising energy conservation. Small, dedicated heaters buried deep within the heavily insulated core of the vehicles would click on, carefully draining the day's harvested power just to keep the vital electronics from freezing solid. the machines essentially held their mechanical breath, waiting out the plunging, deadly temperatures in a prolonged state of suspended, shivering and vulnerable animation. All forward movement completely ceased. All camera irises closed tightly, leaving the explorers completely blind and paralyzed until the life-giving warmth slowly returned. This strict nightly ritual of shutting down was a constant, stark reminder of the incredibly fragile, precarious existence they led in this fundamentally hostile environment. Only the distant promise of the golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise offered the absolute guarantee of another productive day of crawling exploration. They survived purely by constantly walking a razor-thin, dangerous line between draining their vital batteries for science and saving just enough warmth to live through the dark. Despite years of triumphant, flawless navigation, the treacherous, deceptively calm terrain eventually orchestrated an inescapable, permanent trap for the battle-scarred first twin. While attempting to drive across a seemingly harmless flat patch of soil, Spirit broke completely through a thin, deceptive crust and sank deeply into a hidden pit of exceptionally soft, powdery sand. The metallic wheels spun fruitlessly in the loose powder, digging the heavy chassis further down until its flat, mechanical belly rested completely and firmly on the unconsolidated dirt. Months of desperate, carefully calculated extraction maneuvers designed by anxious engineers on Earth proved entirely futile against the clinging, frictionless and unyielding trap. Yet, recognizing the inevitable, the scientists gracefully transitioned the immobilized machine from an active, roaming explorer to a highly valuable, stationary and permanent planetary listening post. It spent its final, quiet days precisely tracking the subtle, microscopic wobble of the planet's rotation, determining the physical state of the planet's dense, deep iron core with its steady radio signals. Feel the heavy, comfortable and warm weight of your own body settling into your resting place, completely secure, grounded and peacefully unmoving. Just as you're perfectly grounded, Spirit finally found its permanent resting spot, the golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise as it accepted its eternal, silent vigil. The brave, pioneering explorer simply stopped moving, quietly fading into the static landscape while continuing to observe the shifting sky until the bitter cold finally claimed its systems. Meanwhile, the second twin continued its staggering, unprecedented marathon across the rolling plains, defying absolutely every engineering expectation, timeline, and physical limitation ever conceived. Originally designed and guaranteed for a primary mission lasting only 90 brief days, Opportunity kept relentlessly rolling for over 14 years in a breathtaking display of mechanical endurance. It vastly outlasted its earthly creator's wildest, most optimistic dreams, surviving brutal winters, massive global dust storms, and the slow, inevitable degradation of its own aging, heavily worn parts. It traversed the treacherous rims of massive ancient craters, drove cautiously through harrowing, winding valleys, and sent back hundreds of thousands of stunning images from a lonely world it had made its own. The rover became a continuous daily presence in the lives of the earthly scientists, a faithful mechanical hound dutifully sniffing out the deepest geological secrets of the vast solar system. It definitively proved that earthly ingenuity, when paired with the occasional lucky cleansing wind, could achieve an almost mythical, permanent longevity in the harshest of environments. Eventually, a planetary dust storm of unprecedented apocalyptic scale completely choked out the available light, forever extinguishing the golden hue of solar arrays glinting under a hazy alien sunrise. But the spectacular legacy of that incredible 14-year marathon forever shifted our collective understanding of what is truly possible when we cast our delicate machines out into the dark. It left a sprawling trail of tyre tracks spanning an entire marathon's distance, a winding, permanent ribbon of human achievement etched perfectly and forever into the silent dust. Leaving a winding, permanent ribbon of human achievement etched perfectly and forever into the silent dust paved the way for an entirely new class of planetary explorer. The relatively small, solar-powered pioneers had proven that long-term survival was possible, but their limited size and power restricted the type of scientific instruments they could carry. To truly dig into the planet's deepest chemical secrets, humanity needed a colossal, heavily armoured laboratory capable of carrying unprecedented mass across the rugged, treacherous terrain. Curiosity was not dropped onto the surface swathed in bouncing, protective fabric. It was far too massive, heavily laden, and delicate for such a violent, chaotic arrival. Instead, it descended on a tether from a hovering autonomous rocket crane, a staggering science fiction maneuver dubbed the Sky Crane by nervous, exhausted engineers. The spacecraft autonomously fired retro-rockets to halt its terrifying plunge, floating gently above the ground while it smoothly lowered the heavy rover on nylon cords. Once the wheels made firm, reassuring contact with the soil, explosive bolts severed the connecting cables in a rapid, synchronized sequence. The hovering crane immediately throttled up and flew away to crash harmlessly in the distance, touching the massive new arrival down with absolute pinpoint grace. In the freezing night, the low, steady hum of a radioisotope generator radiating warmth signaled the successful awakening of the most complex machine ever sent to another world. This new arrival represented a staggering leap in scale and capability, dwarfing the fragile, microwave-sized pioneer that had arrived decades earlier. This rover is roughly the size of a compact earthly car, weighing close to a ton and bristling with a terrifying array of cameras, lasers, and internal analytical laboratories. Despite its massive, imposing bulk, it moves with cautious, calculated precision across the treacherous floor of Gale Crater, treating every boulder and sand trap with extreme analytical respect. Driving such a colossal, heavy vehicle across an alien landscape requires an entirely different philosophy of movement compared to its lighter, more agile predecessors. The sheer mass of the chassis means that every single maneuver must be meticulously planned and flawlessly executed to avoid devastating, mission-ending damage to the intricate undercarriage. The slow, creeping progress is an exercise in extreme, calculated patience, prioritizing the absolute safety of the multi-billion-dollar scientific payload over any desire for rapid, aggressive progress. Let your own physical form relax completely into whatever surface supports you, feeling the heavy, secure gravity anchoring you safely to your place. Just as you're grounded, the massive bulk of the rover maintains a steady, unrelenting grip on the Martian dirt, its heavy wheels pressing firmly into the alien crust. It is a slow, deliberate leviathan, prowling the ancient, dusty basin with a quiet, undeniable, and permanent authority. Supporting this immense rolling laboratory is a masterpiece of mechanical engineering designed specifically to conquer the chaotic, deeply uneven geology of the crater floor. A highly complex articulated suspension system known as a rocker bogie allows all 6 massive wheels to remain in constant grounding contact with the deeply unpredictable terrain. This ingenious interlocking framework of titanium tubes acts essentially like an insect's legs, effortlessly stepping over massive boulders and deep trenches without ever tipping the main chassis. When one wheel encounters a steep sudden incline, the entire mechanical structure shifts and pivots dynamically, distributing the heavy load evenly across the remaining 5 contact points. This ensures the delicate internal instruments, precisely calibrated lasers, and delicate centrifuges remain relatively level and completely protected from violent, jarring impacts. The rover essentially floats over the rocky landscape, its heavy body gliding smoothly above the chaotic, violent geology that defines the ancient cratered basin. The constant, reassuring contact with the soil is not merely a matter of balance, but absolute, vital traction necessary to haul the massive laboratory up steep, treacherous slopes. The low, steady hum of a radioisotope generator radiating warmth in the freezing night acts as a steady heartbeat to this intricate mechanical ballet. The The sophisticated suspension is a silent, uncelebrated hero, working tirelessly in the background to ensure the safe passage of humanity's most advanced robotic emissary. Towering high above the main deck, an intricate, highly articulating mast serves as the primary head and sensory core of the crawling mechanical beast. The mast camera slowly pans across layered mountain bases, methodically sweeping its gaze across the stunning, towering geological formations that surround its lonely position. Mount Sharp, the massive central peak of the crater, rises majestically in the distance, its exposed slopes holding the incredibly detailed, chronological history of the planet's shifting climate. These sweeping panoramic views are not merely breathtaking artistic landscapes, but vital, high-resolution scientific data sets crucial to understanding the planet's watery past. By studying the alternating layers of sediment, the machine is slowly revealing the ancient history of a massive dried-up lake bed that once dominated the entire sprawling basin. The subtle shifts in colour and texture clearly indicate a profound transition from a warm, habitable environment to the freezing, hyper-arid wasteland that exists today. Every time the mechanical neck swivels to capture a new vista, it is essentially reading the deep planetary rings of a colossal, fossilized geological tree. The high-definition images beamed back across the void allow geologists on Earth to virtually stand beside the rover, pointing out fascinating microscopic details in the distant cliffs. It is a slow, methodical visual interrogation of the landscape, unlocking the deep, watery secrets hidden in plain sight. Beyond merely photographing the surrounding rocks, this imposing machine possesses the extraordinary ability to actively reach out and physically alter its immediate environment from a distance. Its powerful, incredibly precise laser gently zaps distant rocks, emitting rapid, microscopic pulses of concentrated light that violently heat the target material to thousands of degrees. This sudden, intense thermal shock instantly vaporizes a tiny pinprick of the stone, creating a brief, glowing spark of plasma in the thin, freezing air. As the vaporized dust rapidly cools, a specialized spectrometer mounted on the mast closely analyzes the specific colors of light emitted by the fading spark. By reading this unique, glowing chemical fingerprint, scientists can precisely identify the elemental composition of the rock without the rover ever needing to physically touch it. It is a spectacular, futuristic method of reading the chemical secrets of the planet, allowing the machine to rapidly survey hundreds of potential targets before committing to a closer physical inspection. Take a moment to notice the quiet, rhythmic sound of your own breathing, a steady, comforting pulse in your own quiet environment. On another world, the rhythmic snapping sound of the laser echoes faintly across the silent rocks, a completely new, artificial sound on an ancient dead world. The low, steady hum of a radioisotope generator radiating warmth in the freezing night provides the immense power necessary to hurl these brief, intense flashes of concentrated energy. Despite its imposing size and fearsome laser-wielding capabilities, the rover remains incredibly isolated, completely cut off from direct, immediate contact with its distant creators. Far from home, the rover sings a quiet, complex song of telemetry back to Earth every single day, translating its physical experiences into a dense digital stream of ones and zeros. This invisible, vital thread of communication is the only proof of its continued existence, a fragile lifeline bridging millions of miles of terrifying empty space. The daily transmission includes absolutely everything: the precise temperature of its internal motors, the exact chemical makeup of a vaporized rock, and sweeping high-definition panoramic photographs. It is essentially keeping a meticulous, highly detailed diary of its lonely existence, sharing its profound discoveries with an eagerly waiting, invisible audience back on its homeworld. The vast interplanetary distance ensures that this daily conversation is deeply delayed, an endless, looping monologue spoken entirely into the dark, silent void. The massive antennas mounted on the rover's deck constantly shift and point, precisely tracking the invisible shifting position of Earth as the two planets race around the Sun. Maintaining this vital, silent connection requires immense computational power and precise orbital mechanics, ensuring the song of telemetry is never completely lost in the background noise of the cosmos. It is a profound, poignant reminder of the immense distances involved and the incredible, persistent human effort required to maintain a presence in the dark. The brutal reality of the crater floor is a deeply hostile, abrasive environment specifically designed to destroy anything that dares to move across it. Over years of slow, relentless driving, the thin, meticulously engineered aluminum wheels have slowly acquired deep dents, tears, and jagged, gaping holes. The terrain is littered with ventifacts, rocks that have been sharply eroded by the wind into vicious, razor-sharp blades that easily puncture the delicate, metallic skin of the tyres. These accumulating wounds are not signs of failure, but rather the hard-earned, unavoidable scars of a long, incredibly rugged, and scientifically triumphant journey. Each puncture, carefully photographed and analysed by anxious engineers, tells a visceral story of the violent physical interaction between the heavy machine and the unforgiving ground. The wheels, originally gleaming and perfect, now resemble heavily battered armour, physical testaments to the sheer, brutal difficulty of the monumental task they were assigned. Allow your mind to drift back to the physical sensations of your own body, feeling completely safe and untouched by the harsh elements of the outside world. Far away, the heavy machine continues to crawl on heavily damaged limbs, the low, steady hum of a radioisotope generator radiating warmth in the freezing night providing the necessary stamina. The physical toll is immense, a silent, ongoing battle of attrition between earthly engineering and the relentless, sharp geology of the alien basin. To prolong the operational life of the heavily damaged mobility system, the human drivers were forced to radically alter their entire approach to navigating the treacherous terrain. Engineers intentionally drive the rover backward at times, dragging the heavily damaged front wheels rather than using them to aggressively attack the sharp, jagged stones. This cautious, highly unorthodox maneuver completely shifts the massive weight distribution of the vehicle, significantly reducing the brutal impact forces on the most severely compromised aluminum segments. This slow, retreating progress is a masterpiece of adaptive, long-distance problem-solving, maximizing the scientific return while simultaneously coddling the fragile, wounded hardware. The teams on Earth constantly analyze high-resolution images of the path ahead, meticulously mapping out the safest, least destructive route through the vicious, rocky minefield. They balance the desperate need to reach fascinating new geological layers against the terrifying reality that a completely destroyed wheel would permanently end the expedition. Driving backward completely changes the visual narrative of the mission, forcing the primary cameras to constantly look back at the winding, dusty path the machine has just travelled. It is a poignant, almost poetic adjustment, a mechanical acknowledgement of its own physical vulnerability and the immense difficult distance it has already covered. The rover continues to limp forward, prioritising the mission above all else, adapting perfectly to the brutal reality of its own slow destruction. When the remote visual inspection identifies a particularly fascinating, scientifically dense target, the massive machine deploys its most complex and aggressive physical tool. A heavy, percussive drill smoothly and powerfully bores shallow holes into the ancient hardened mudstone, violently breaking apart the solid rock that has remained undisturbed for eons. The violent hammering action is a stark contrast to the quiet, creeping progress of the rover, a sudden, noisy intrusion into the deep geological silence. The primary goal of this destructive mechanical violence is not merely to create a hole, but to meticulously collect the extremely fine, pristine grey powder, generated by the heavy grinding. This pulverized rock, extracted from deep beneath the oxidized, heavily weathered red surface, holds the uncorrupted original chemical signature of the ancient lake bed. The drill essentially acts as a highly specialized time machine, pulling fresh, unweathered material straight out of the deep planetary past for immediate on-site analysis. Once the precious grey powder is carefully collected, it is precisely sifted and sorted before being dropped directly into the complex, miniaturized analytical laboratories hidden deep within the rover's belly. The low, steady hum of a radioisotope generator radiating warmth in the freezing night provides the immense power required to bake these tiny samples in microscopic ovens. It is the ultimate culmination of the machine's purpose, tearing apart the planet to read the deeply hidden, microscopic secrets locked within its stones. Unlike the previous generation of explorers, this massive, imposing behemoth is not bound by the strict, terrifying limitations of the brief, hazy sunlight. It carries its own immense, completely independent power source, freeing it entirely from the desperate daily struggle to survive the freezing dark months. Nighttime operations are seamlessly powered by the silent, steady decay of plutonium, ensuring the massive, complex rover never truly sleeps or succumbs entirely to the cold. This deep internal warmth allows the sophisticated analytical laboratories to run complex, power-hungry experiments throughout the long, bitterly freezing night, while the rest of the planet remains completely paralyzed. The machine can spend the dark hours quietly baking microscopic soil samples, slowly listening to telemetry, or meticulously preparing its complex instruments for the next day's aggressive drive. The heavy, metallic heart of the rover beats with a steady nuclear pulse, utterly indifferent to the violent shifting dust storms or the deeply fading light. As you sit in quiet contemplation, imagine the profound, absolute isolation of that dark crater, illuminated only by the faint distant starlight. In the center of that vast emptiness, the low, steady hum of a radioisotope generator radiating warmth in the freezing night is the only sign of activity. The nuclear behemoth stands completely alone in the dark, patiently awake, silently digesting the ancient secrets it has pulled from the cold, dead stones. The silent digestion of the cold, dead stones eventually gave way to a historic moment when the red planet finally broke its multi-billion-year silence. Perseverance carried the very first working microphones to the surface, finally giving Mars a voice that could be transmitted back to the human ear for the very first time. This addition of a high-fidelity auditory dimension transformed our entire understanding of the alien landscape from a purely visual experience into a truly immersive and multi-sensory reality. For decades, we watched the dusty plains in a state of sensory deprivation, forced to imagine the sounds that might accompany the movement of the wind or the grinding of wheels. This new machine, however, arrived with ears of gold and silicon, ready to harvest the vibrations of a world that had remained acoustically hidden since the dawn of the solar system. The first recordings sent back were more than just data. They were an invitation to finally stand within the atmosphere and hear the heartbeat of another world. Each sound captured by these sensitive instruments provides a visceral connection to the environment, bridging the gap between a robotic observer and the human experience. As the microphones activated, the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze was finally heard, a thin and spectral sound that whispered of the immense hollow canyons and the vast empty deserts. This breakthrough allows us to experience the planet not as a static photograph, but as a living place with its own unique acoustic signature. Surprisingly, the universe revealed that the soundscape of this distant world is not filled with the roar of catastrophic storms, but is instead characterized by a profound and eerie stillness. Audio recordings reveal a surprisingly quiet world, where the thin atmosphere muffles the sound of the wind into a faint spectral whisper that barely registers on the human ear. Because the air is so incredibly sparse, consisting of a density that is barely 1% of what we experience on Earth, sound waves struggle to travel any significant distance. High-pitched tones vanish almost instantly into the carbon dioxide haze, while lower frequencies are softened as if heard through a thick layer of heavy velvet. This acoustic damping creates a sense of immense, heavy isolation, where even the most violent movements of the rover produce sounds that feel distant and restrained. The atmospheric composition actually alters the speed of sound itself, causing different frequencies to arrive at slightly different times, creating a distorted and ghostly echo. In this muffled environment, the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze provides the only natural music, a low-energy hum that occasionally rises above the baseline noise of the machine. It is a world where silence is the dominant force, a heavy and omnipresent blanket that reminds any listener of the extreme fragility of life in such a vacuum. Listening to these tapes is like peering through a dusty window into a room where every movement is slow, deliberate, and hushed by the weight of time. Deep within the sprawling ancient expanse of Jezero Crater, the machine creates its own rhythmic and industrial symphony as it traverses the jagged floor of the impact basin. You can hear the rhythmic metallic crunch of the rover's wheels driving over the rocky floor, a sound that would be piercingly sharp on Earth but arrives here as a softened rhythmic grinding. This mechanical percussion provides a constant and reassuring pulse to the mission, signalling that the six-wheeled traveller is successfully making its way across the ancient dehydrated terrain. The wheels are made of thin, flexible aluminum and are equipped with specialised cleats that bite into the uneven ground with a distinct metallic clicking sound. As the rover navigates over plates of hardened mudstone and fields of sharp basalt, the microphones capture every vibration travelling through the titanium suspension system. This audio data is not just for our curiosity. It allows engineers to diagnose the health of the drive motors by listening for the subtle changes in the pitch and rhythm of the machinery. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your chest as you breathe, feeling the weight of your limbs as they rest comfortably in the stillness of your current space. Far away, the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze occasionally punctuates the sound of the rover's progress, creating a duet between the human-made machine and the ancient alien air. It is a lonely mechanical song that echoes through the crater, a reminder that the desert is no longer entirely empty of movement or sound. If we were to look closer at the complex turret mounted on the rover's mast, we would witness a precise scientific ritual accompanied by a unique and startling acoustic signature. The supercam laser emits a rhythmic snapping sound as it clears dust from target rocks, creating tiny, high-energy explosions that ring out through the thin air with surprising clarity. Each snap represents a microscopic pulse of concentrated power, a sharp staccato that echoes briefly against the silent nearby boulders before fading back into the atmospheric void. The sound is produced by the rapid expansion of the plasma spark as it vaporizes the top layer of the stone, acting like a tiny repetitive whip crack in the stillness. By analysing the volume and pitch of these snaps, scientists can actually determine the hardness of the rock being targeted without ever having to drill into its core. It is a method of acoustic probing that allows the machine to feel the landscape through sound, turning the thin atmosphere into a tool for geological discovery. This rhythmic snapping provides a sharp, energetic contrast to the faint, rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze that usually dominates the audio feed. It is a sound of active investigation, a technological intrusion that breaks the multi-billion-year slumber of the stones with the authority of human science. The laser continues its work, methodically clearing the path for the eyes of the rover to see the true, unweathered colours hidden beneath the pervasive red dust. The Delta represents one of the most promising locations in the entire solar system for finding evidence of past biology, as river systems on Earth are known for preserving organic matter in their silt. This machine is designed to move slowly through this fossilised environment, stopping at every layer of clay and carbonate to look for the biosignatures of an ancient watery world. The scale of the landscape is staggering, with cliffs rising hundreds of feet into the hazy sky, remnants of a time when the crater was a deep, flourishing lake. As you relax, the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze moves through the ancient river channels, carrying the ghosts of a time when liquid water rushed through these very canyons. It is a place of profound geological memory, where the machine acts as a silent witness to the end of a world that once resembled our own. The river is long gone, but its path remains etched into the stone, waiting for the rover to decipher the secrets of its watery demise. Deeply embedded within the rover's internal storage is a collection of 43 pristine, ultra-clean containers designed for a task of monumental historical importance. Sample tubes are carefully filled with rock cores, sealed perfectly using a complex mechanical system that ensures no earthly contamination can ever reach the precious specimens. These metallic cylinders are then left gently on the ground for a future return mission, scattered across the surface like small silver breadcrumbs marking the path of human discovery. The process of collecting these cores is an exercise in extreme precision, requiring the rover to drill into carefully selected targets and extract a cylinder of rock about the size of a piece of chalk. Each tube is a time capsule, holding a piece of the Martian past that has been protected from the harsh radiation of the surface for millions of years. The act of placing these samples on the ground is a gesture of profound faith in the future of space exploration, a trust that a later mission will come to collect them. Feel the subtle warmth radiating from your palms and the quiet, steady rhythm of your heart as you sink further into relaxation and peace. In the distance of that red desert, the silver tubes sit in total silence, the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze being the only thing to touch their smooth metallic surfaces. They are the most valuable objects ever placed on another planet, waiting patiently for the day they will finally be carried back to the laboratories of Earth. To truly understand the shifting environment of the crater, the rover takes frequent pauses, sitting perfectly still to listen to the atmospheric dynamics around it. During these moments of mechanical silence, the microphones are turned up to their highest sensitivity, capturing the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze as it brushes past the metallic chassis. These recordings allow scientists to track the speed, direction, and turbulence of the wind, providing a rare acoustic map of the thin CO2-rich air moving through the basin. This period of stillness is a necessary reset for both the machine and its creators, a time to simply exist within the environment without demanding anything from it. It is in these moments that the isolation of the machine is most keenly felt, as the vast empty silence of the planet is only briefly interrupted by the passing air. The rover sits as a solitary sentinel, gathering the whispers of the wind and translating them into the language of human science. If we were to peer through the powerful telescopic lenses mounted high on the rover's mast, the distant landscape would suddenly appear in startling microscopic detail. Its cameras can zoom in on distant cliff faces, resolving tiny layers of sediment laid down billions of years ago by the slow and steady accumulation of river-borne silt. Each thin line in the rock is a frozen frame of history, a geological record of a time when the planet was capable of supporting vast liquid oceans and perhaps even life. These cameras act as long-distance microscopes, allowing the team on Earth to identify specific minerals and textures from miles away. By stitching these high-resolution images together, scientists can reconstruct the entire history of the delta, tracing the rise and fall of ancient lake levels and the movement of massive prehistoric floods. The level of detail is so high that researchers can see the individual grains of sand that were once tumbled by water at the bottom of the ancient crater. Notice the quiet, heavy stillness of your own surroundings, letting any remaining tension drift away like dust on an alien wind. While you rest, the rover's eyes are locked on the horizon, catching the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze as it pans across the ancient layered cliffs. The geological story written in the stone is one of immense change, a slow transition from a world of water to a world of eternal freezing dust. This structure also houses a small experimental device that performs a feat of modern technological sorcery beneath the dusty alien sky. An internal oxygen generator quietly converts carbon dioxide from the thin atmosphere into breathable air, establishing a slow rhythm of alchemy that could one day sustain human life on the surface. This process involves heating the atmospheric gases to extreme temperatures and using a chemical reaction to pull the oxygen molecules apart from the carbon. The experiment is a proof of concept for in situ resource utilization, the idea that we do not need to bring everything with us from Earth to survive in deep space. Every time the device is activated, it produces enough oxygen to keep a small dog alive for a few minutes, a tiny but monumental achievement in the history of exploration. It proves that the very atmosphere that makes Mars so hostile can be transformed into a life-giving resource through the power of human ingenuity. This quiet, internal hum of chemical transformation adds a new layer to the soundscape, a steady pulse of progress that complements the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze. It is the sound of a bridge being built toward the future, a technological heartbeat that envisions a day when humans will walk where the Rovers now crawl. The alchemy of the machine is the first step toward turning the red planet into a second home for the human spirit. The profound magnitude of the universe feels most expansive and overwhelming in the fleeting moments of absolute quiet that follow the passage of a local breeze. The silence between the wind gusts emphasizes the profound isolation of this robotic emissary, standing alone in a vast wilderness where no other voice has ever spoken or been heard. In this heavy and unyielding stillness, the faint rhythmic whistling of a Martian breeze becomes a haunting reminder of the immense distance between the machine and the warm, crowded world of its creators. The rover is essentially an island of technology in an ocean of ancient, indifferent stone, a tiny point of light in a landscape that has known only darkness and cold for eons. Its loneliness is not a defect, but a necessary condition of its mission to stand where we cannot yet stand and to see what we cannot yet see. Every transmission sent back to Earth is a signal of defiance against the crushing silence of the cosmos, a declaration that even in the most isolated corners of the solar system we are present. As the day fades and the machine prepares for the freezing night, the wind dies down to a mere whisper against the metallic mast. The silence returns, absolute and profound, covering the tracks and the boulders in a layer of peace that has lasted for 4 billion years. The robotic emissary stands ready, a lone observer in the dark waiting for the first light of dawn to continue its rhythmic, solitary journey through the dust. Deep within the belly of the rolling giant, a second, far more delicate spirit waited for its own moment of solitary awakening. Tucked securely beneath the undercarriage of the heavy rover, a tiny helicopter named Ingenuity rested in a state of perfectly engineered dormancy during the long voyage through the cold, interplanetary dark. It was a stowaway of hope, a 4-pound marvel of carbon fibre and solar cells clinging to the massive chassis as it navigated the first perilous months on the crater floor. This small machine was never intended to endure the heavy labour of drilling or the long-distance marathons of the primary explorer. Instead, it was a scout, a proof of concept that sought to break the gravitational tether that had kept all previous visitors grounded to the ancient, rusty soil. Inside its protective casing, the tiny rotors and miniature computer brain were sheltered from the initial violent impacts and the pervasive, abrasive dust. The relationship between the two machines was one of absolute maternal protection, with the large rover acting as a mobile shield against the harshest elements. It was a passenger on a journey through the dust, biding its time until the landscape opened up to reveal a flat, safe airfield. The rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere remained a silent potential, waiting for the right moment. Once a suitable clearing was identified among the jagged basalt, the massive rover performed a slow and careful mechanical berth, gently lowering its companion onto the frozen surface. It dropped softly to the ground, standing on 4 spindly titanium legs that looked impossibly fragile against the immense scale of the surrounding geological features. For the first time in the history of exploration, a powered aircraft stood alone on the surface of another world, completely disconnected from its mothership. The true test of its resilience came as the sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the landing zone into a brutal, metal-shattering cold. Surviving the freezing night entirely on its own internal power was a monumental feat of thermal engineering, as the tiny battery had to keep the delicate electronics warm enough to prevent failure. Without the nuclear warmth of the rover to sustain it, the helicopter relied solely on its own solar harvesting capabilities and high-tech insulation. Morning revealed the success of this solitary vigil, as the first faint radio signals confirmed that the system was still operational. The rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere was no longer a dream of the designers, but a physical possibility waiting for the command to ignite. This survival proved that the smallest of emissaries could withstand the most hostile environments through the power of elegant design. History changed forever on a still morning when the computer brain of the small drone executed a sequence of commands that had never been attempted outside of a vacuum chamber. The first flight lasted only 40 seconds, a brief and controlled hover that carried the machine just a few feet into the wispy air before it returned to the ground. In that fleeting moment, the Wright brothers' legacy was extended to a new celestial body, marking the transition from surface exploration to aerial mastery. Because the signals take minutes to travel across the interplanetary void, this monumental achievement occurred in absolute silence from Earth's perspective. There was no real-time cheering, no live video feed, only a profound and tense period of waiting as the data trickled back through the deep space network. Only when the first telemetry confirmed a successful liftoff and landing did the room full of engineers erupt in a release of decades of pent-up scientific anxiety. Notice the way your breath moves with effortless ease, the thick air of your home world supporting you with every inhale and exhale. The rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere was a 40-second miracle that proved the sky was no longer a barrier. It was a quiet triumph of physics over the ancient stillness of a distant world. Ascending into the pale, salmon-colored sky offered a perspective that had previously been reserved for orbiting satellites millions of miles above the ground. Airborne cameras capture the rover from above, showing the massive machine as a small, silver point of light surrounded by the vast, intricate geography of its own travels. From this vantage point, 2 parallel tracks can be seen winding into the distance, a pair of dark ribbons etched into the ancient dust like a long-form signature of human presence. Seeing the tracks from the air reveals the true complexity of the rover's journey, highlighting the way it meticulously weaves through fields of boulders and around treacherous dunes. The drone acts as a celestial eye, providing the ground-based team with a high-resolution map that allows them to plan the path ahead with unprecedented clarity. It transforms the mission from a 2-dimensional crawl into a 3-dimensional exploration, where the terrain can be understood in its full, majestic context. The images sent back reveal a landscape of staggering, lonely beauty, where the geometric perfection of the rover's tracks contrasts with the chaotic erosion. The rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere allows us to look back at our own progress and see the history we're writing. We're no longer blind to the path behind us or the challenges that lie waiting over the next horizon. During its frequent sorties across the river delta, the small helicopter creates its own fleeting moving mark upon the ancient landscape. Ingenuity casts a sharp, solitary shadow that dances across the sand dunes as it flies, a dark and fluttering silhouette that provides the only movement in a world of static stone. Because the sun is a distant, sharp point of light, the shadow remains incredibly distinct, tracing every ripple and crest of the sand as the drone maneuvers. This dancing shadow serves as a vital navigation tool for the onboard sensors, allowing the computer to calculate its altitude and speed over the varying terrain with precision. It is a hauntingly beautiful sight, watching the dark shape glide effortlessly over the frozen waves of the Martian desert while the flight continues. The shadow is a ghost of a machine, a reminder that something from Earth is currently defying the ancient, unyielding stillness of the planet. Surprisingly, the physics of flight on this distant world are incredibly unforgiving, demanding a level of mechanical performance that would be unnecessary on any other planet. To generate enough lift in the wispy CO2-dominated air, the rotors must spin at an astonishing 2,500 revolutions per minute. This is roughly 10 times the speed required for a helicopter of similar size on Earth, pushing the carbon fibre blades to the very edge of their structural limits. Feel the heavy, comfortable weight of your own body as it rests, the air around you providing a thick and invisible cushion that supports you. In that distant desert, the drone works with a frantic, industrial intensity. Just to stay aloft for a few moments at a time, it is a masterpiece of efficiency, where every gram of weight and every watt of power is calculated to win. By utilising this new aerial perspective, the team on Earth was able to transform the way they navigated the heavy, nuclear-powered behemoth through the crater. Flight paths are planned meticulously, guiding the drone over treacherous boulders and around hidden sand traps that the heavy rover must avoid at all costs. The helicopter acts as a forward scout, flying hundreds of feet ahead to identify the safest and most scientifically interesting routes through the complex geography. This scouting capability allows the rover to move with much greater confidence and speed, as it no longer has to rely solely on its own limited cameras. The drone can see over the next ridge, peer into the depths of a canyon, and find the shallowest path across a field of loose sediment. It is a partnership of eyes and wheels, where the rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere provides the foresight needed. The data gathered from above has prevented countless potential accidents, identifying sharp, tyre-shredding ventifacts that were previously invisible. Each flight is a reconnaissance mission into the unknown, a way to de-risk the slow, grinding progress of the primary laboratory. The partnership between the two machines represents a new era of collaborative robotics, working together to unlock the secrets of an ancient world. Every intense, high-speed flight is followed by a prolonged period of profound stillness and recovery beneath the pale, hazy sky. Each successful landing is followed by several days of resting and recharging in the uninterrupted sunlight, as the tiny solar panel on top of the rotors slowly gathers energy. The small machine sits perfectly motionless on the sand, its spindly legs anchored in the dust while its internal batteries slowly soak up the meagre photons from the sun. Notice the slow, rhythmic pulse of your heart, a steady drumbeat that fuels your own periods of activity and rest. Far away, the helicopter is a silent sentinel, its silicon mind waiting for the precisely calculated moment when its power reserves are high enough. It is a cycle of renewal that sustains the mission, a testament to the fact that even machines must bow to the environment. Initially designed as a high-risk tech demo, the small machine proved to be far more durable and capable than even its most optimistic creators had imagined. The helicopter outlived its original 5-flight plan, exploring far beyond its initial experimental boundaries to become an integral part of the scientific mission. It survived massive dust storms that threatened to bury its solar panels and endured the brutal nightly temperature swings that had been predicted to crack its electronics. Instead of stopping after its 5th sortie, the drone continued to fly for dozens of additional missions, covering miles of ground and exploring inaccessible areas. It became a permanent fixture of the Martian sky, a reliable aerial assistant that far exceeded its intended lifespan and mission scope. The rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere became a familiar sound, a reassuring signal of the continued success of the experiment. Its longevity was a victory for the entire engineering community, proving that lightweight technology could survive the rigours of deep space. the machine pushed the boundaries of what was possible, showing that we are no longer limited to the surface of the planets we visit. Through its persistence, the small drone opened the door for future generations of flying explorers that will one day swarm the sky. All great journeys eventually come to an end, often dictated by the harsh and unpredictable nature of the landscape being explored. A final, rough landing permanently grounded Ingenuity, as a hard impact with the surface damaged its sensitive carbon fibre rotors beyond the point of repair. While the machine remained operationally functional and in contact with Earth, its ability to generate the lift required for flight was lost forever in the dunes. The mission ended not with a catastrophic failure, but with a quiet and dignified transition into a state of permanent stationary rest. It remains exactly where it landed, its damaged blades now still and silent under the vast salmon-colored heavens. The rapid, whirring hum of twin carbon fibre blades slicing through the thin atmosphere has been replaced by the eternal, unyielding peace of the Martian wilderness. It rests quietly in the rolling dunes forever, a small silver monument to the first time humanity took flight on another world. Its legacy is etched into the data logs and the high-resolution photographs that have forever changed our view of the red planet. As the wind slowly covers its spindly legs in dust, the drone remains a silent testament to the reach of our mechanical children. The art of the Martian selfie sensory focus, the slow articulation of a robotic arm capturing multiple overlapping frames. The reach of our mechanical children is perhaps most viscerally felt when these explorers pause their scientific labours to turn their eyes back upon themselves. These elaborate self-portraits are far more than simple digital captures. They are complex high-definition mosaics constructed by meticulously stitching together dozens of individual frames taken from a variety of carefully calculated angles. The process is a slow and deliberate mechanical dance, with the high-resolution camera mounted on the robotic arm moving through a pre-programmed sequence of positions. This ensures that every inch of the rover's dusty chassis and intricate undercarriage is documented with absolute clarity. Each frame captures a slightly different perspective of the machine and the surrounding soil, allowing the software on Earth to create a seamless view of the entire structure. The resulting image provides a complete and detailed record of the rover's physical state at a specific point in its multi-year journey. It is a moment of digital self-reflection, in a landscape that has never known the presence of a mirror or an observer. By observing itself, the machine creates a visual anchor in the vast shifting desert of the ancient crater. Every overlapping tile in this visual grid represents a tiny victory for the engineers who coordinate the articulation of the arm from millions of miles away. If we were to look closer at the finished composite, a strange and surreal detail becomes immediately apparent to anyone familiar with the physical limitations of a camera. The robotic arm holding the imaging equipment is cleverly edited out of the final mosaic, creating the seamless and convincing illusion of an invisible third-person photographer standing out on the dunes. This software magic allows the viewer to see the rover as a complete and isolated entity, perfectly framed against the dramatic backdrop of the rust-coloured mountains and rippling sand. It is a visual trick that brings the human viewer closer to the alien surface, inviting us to imagine ourselves standing beside our mechanical emissary in the silent air. This illusion of presence is a powerful tool for connecting the people of Earth with the reality of the Martian surface. The result is a portrait that captures both the technological brilliance of the machine and the haunting, majestic emptiness of the world it has been sent to explore. Beyond the aesthetic and historical value of these images, the act of self-documentation serves a vital and uncompromising diagnostic purpose for the mission engineers. These high-resolution selfies allow engineers millions of miles away to perform a meticulous visual inspection for dust accumulation and physical wear that could threaten the rover's health. By zooming into the fine details of the frame, operators can count the individual grains of sand settling on the solar panels or inspect the aluminum wheels for new tears. They search for signs of mechanical fatigue in the joints and check the integrity of the various sensors and antennas that allow the machine to communicate with the world. It is a necessary ritual of survival in an environment that is constantly trying to scour the artificial hardware back into the dust. The data gathered from these self-reflections informs every future command, helping the team decide when to move and when to stay still to conserve power. In the harsh reality of the red planet, a single unnoticed crack or a thick layer of dust can mean the difference between continued exploration and a permanent silent end. This visual health check is the only way for the creators to touch their distant child and ensure it remains strong enough to continue its work. It provides a level of intimacy and care that is otherwise impossible to achieve across the vast cold ocean of the solar system. Standing before dramatic and alien geological formations, the machine frequently pauses to document its presence in the towering ancient landscape. These photographs are not just about the rover itself, but about the relationship between human technology and the primal, wind-sculpted history of the planet. By positioning the metallic chassis in front of massive cliffs or deep, shadows-filled canyons, the images provide a sense of scale that is otherwise difficult to comprehend. We see the relatively small, intricate geometry of the machine contrasted against the colossal, unmoving bulk of mountains that have stood for billions of years. It is a way of marking a specific moment in space and time, recording the exact point where earthly materials met the alien crust. These portraits serve as milestones for the journey, documenting the achievement of reaching specific scientific targets that were once just distant blurry shapes in an orbital photograph. Notice the quiet, heavy stillness of your own surroundings as you contemplate this mechanical traveller, letting any remaining tension drift away like dust on an alien wind. The rover remains perfectly still as the cameras click, a silent and unmoving witness to the vast, hollow majesty of the Jezero Basin. Each frame is a physical proof of our arrival at the edges of the unknown, a documentation of the human spirit's presence on a world that has never known life. Protecting these delicate eyes from the harsh reality of the surface, the lenses are protected by clear sapphire covers to prevent scratching from the abrasive wind-blown dust. This material is necessary because the Martian soil is composed of tiny, sharp volcanic particles that would quickly scour and scratch standard optical glass. Without this protective barrier, the rover's vision would gradually blur, turning the sharp and jagged reality of the surface into a hazy and unintelligible fog of light. The sapphire covers ensure that the high-resolution sensors remain clear and sharp throughout the years of exposure to the relentless scouring air. They are the frontline defense for the machine's most vital sense, allowing it to continue reading the geological story written in the rocks from great distances. Every selfie and panorama is made possible by this thin, incredibly durable layer of artificial crystal that stands between the delicate optics and the hostile atmosphere. It is a small but critical triumph of material science that allows the human eye to see the red planet with such breathtaking and permanent clarity. The light passes through this armour with zero distortion, bringing the distant world home in all its sharp and unforgiving detail. These covers must remain perfectly clean and unblemished, as even a microscopic scratch could create a glare that ruins the scientific value of a high-resolution image. Wide panoramas capture the entire horizon in a single sweeping gaze, ranging from the immediate and rusty foreground all the way to the hazy distant crater rims. These massive images are constructed from hundreds of individual photographs, providing a perspective that is much broader than what a human eye could take in at once. They reveal the sheer, overwhelming scale of the landscape, where the rolling dunes and jagged ridges seem to stretch into an infinite and unchanging past. By following the winding trail of tyre tracks in these images, the viewer can trace the entire history of the rover's movements through the basin. You can see where it paused to drill, where it navigated around treacherous boulders, and where it climbed the steep slopes of the delta. These vistas highlight the profound and absolute silence of the environment, a world where nothing moves except the dust and the shadow of the machine itself. They provide the context for the entire mission, showing that the rover is not just exploring a single rock, but is wandering through a vast and complex planetary history. Each panorama is a visual symphony of erosion and time, capturing the lonely beauty of a world that has never known the presence of life. The horizon stays sharp and clear, a distant promise of the new lands that still lie waiting beyond the next ridge in the vast red desert. High-resolution colour balances are achieved by calibrating the camera sensors against a small, specialised sundial mounted on the rover's deck. This device, known as a calibration target, features blocks of specific, known colours and a central shadow casting post that allows the software to adjust for the unique quality of the light. Because the Martian atmosphere scatters light differently than the atmosphere of Earth, the raw images often appear with a heavy, unnatural reddish tint that obscures the true hues of the geology. By using the sundial as a reference point, scientists can ensure that the photographs we see on our screens reflect what a human eye would actually witness standing on the surface. It allows for the accurate identification of minerals and textures that are vital to understanding the planet's volcanic and hydrological history. The calibration target is a constant and unmoving standard of truth in an environment where the light is always changing with the seasons and the dust. Feel the weight of your limbs as they rest comfortably in the stillness of your current space, knowing that the images you see are grounded in this precise and earthly measurement. The sundial ensures that our vision of the distant world remains clear, accurate, and scientifically sound, even as the environment shifts around the machine. It is a bridge of light that connects our earthly perception with the stark reality of the Martian surface, allowing us to see the true colours of another world. The sundials carry hidden messages and simple line drawings, tiny pieces of human art that have been left on another world as silent messages. These artistic additions were etched into the hardware by the teams who built them, a way of leaving a human signature on the machines that wander the silent plains. Some feature the silhouettes of human figures reaching toward the sky, while others carry messages about the pursuit of knowledge and the shared curiosity of all mankind. They represent a quiet, artistic signature left on another world, turning the rover from a purely scientific tool into a cultural emissary. These tiny drawings will likely outlast the civilization that created them, remaining perfectly preserved in the arid and frozen vacuum for millions of years. They're a quiet and permanent declaration of our existence, waiting for whoever might one day find these metallic wanderers resting in the dust. The sundials serve as both a clock and a canvas, marking the passage of time on a world where our art now rests alongside the ancient stones. It is a profound and moving synthesis of science and the human spirit, etched forever into the heart of the machine. By including these hidden details, the creators of the mission have ensured that our mechanical children carry not just our tools, but our stories and our dreams into the void. Surprisingly, the universe has a way of communicating its secrets through the visual clarity of these distant digital dispatches from the red desert. Looking at these images across the vast interplanetary void, you can almost feel the still, arid cold radiating from the screen with a physical intensity. The sharpness of the shadows and the absolute clarity of the thin air create a visual sensation that transcends the boundaries of the digital medium. Each photograph is a window into a reality that is fundamentally different from our own, a place where the temperature never rises above freezing and the wind carries no scent. This visual immersion allows us to participate in the mission on a sensory level, bridging the gap between the earthly viewer and the robotic observer. The cold is not just a measurement, but a tangible presence that haunts every frame sent back from the red desert, reminding us of the extreme difficulty of the journey. Each photograph is a quiet testament to the enduring presence of a lone observer in a vast and indifferent wilderness. These images represent the visual legacy of a journey that has lasted for decades and covered many miles of territory where no human has ever set foot. They are the historical records of our mechanical children, documenting their persistence and their curiosity in the face of an environment that is fundamentally hostile to their existence. Every selfie, every panoramic vista, and every microscopic close-up is a victory for the human spirit over the crushing silence of the cosmos. They prove that we are capable of reaching across the void to see and touch a world that was once only a distant, blurry point of light in the night sky. The rover stands as a solitary sentinel, its eyes forever open to the wonders of the landscape as it continues its rhythmic and solitary journey through the dust. These photographs will remain long after the rover has finally ceased its movements, a permanent archive of the time we first explored the ancient mountains of another world. They are the bridge between two planets, the enduring evidence of our reach into the dark and a promise of the future human journeys that will follow. Through these eyes of glass, we have finally become the inhabitants of two worlds, witnessing the silent majesty of the solar system from the comfort of our home. Witnessing the silent majesty of the solar system from the comfort of our home reveals that even a world as desolate as the red planet is subject to the rhythmic, sweeping changes of a celestial calendar. Just like our own planet, this distant neighbour possesses a significant axial tilt, which dictates a cycle of distinct and predictable seasons as it journeys around the sun. These annual shifts bring subtle but profound changes to the intensity of the light and the biting chill of the air surrounding our mechanical emissaries. As the northern hemisphere tilts toward the distant star, the days lengthen and the pale, salmon-colored sky takes on a slightly more vibrant golden hue. Conversely, the arrival of winter brings a deepening gloom and a terrifying drop in temperature that test the very limits of earthly engineering. This seasonal pulse serves as the ultimate metronome for the mission, governing everything from the duration of a rover's drive to the precise timing of its scientific experiments. The rovers act as stationary weather stations during their long expeditions, documenting the slow crawl of the seasons over the passage of years. They record the shifting angles of shadows and the gradual cooling of the soil as the planetary tilt moves them further into the shadow of the cold. Through their persistent observations, we have come to understand that the red planet is not a static wasteland, but a dynamic world with a heartbeat of its own. During the peak of the frigid winter, the landscape undergoes a transformation that is as quiet as it is breathtaking, coating the jagged rocks in a fragile alien beauty. As the temperature drops below the freezing point of the very atmosphere itself, carbon dioxide begins to desublimate directly from the air into a solid state. This creates a very thin, ethereal layer of dry ice frost that can blanket the boulders and dunes, sparkling faintly in the early morning light like a dusting of crushed diamonds. The delicate glimmer of carbon dioxide frost forming on a metallic deck just before dawn is a sight of profound, crystalline purity. This frost does not melt into liquid as the sun rises, but instead turns directly back into gas, creating a ghostly, shimmering effect above the ground. It is a fleeting, seasonal jewel that disappears almost as soon as the first weak rays of the sun touch the horizon. Observing this process through high-resolution lenses reveals the intricate microscopic geometry of the ice crystals as they cling to the rover's hardware. These frost events are most common in the deep shadows of craters and on the leeward sides of large stones, where the cold can pool and linger. For a few brief hours every year, the monochromatic red desert is touched by a brilliant white luminescence that reminds us of the extreme temperatures of deep space. If we were to look closer at the thin, pale daytime sky during the transition between seasons, we might spot delicate, high-altitude structures drifting slowly over the crater. Wispy cirrus clouds made of pure water ice crystals sometimes form miles above the surface, appearing as thin, feathery streaks against the butterscotch-coloured heavens. These clouds are incredibly sparse, so thin that they would be almost invisible to a human eye standing on the ground. Yet they are captured with startling clarity by the rover's specialised filters. They move with a slow and hypnotic grace, pushed along by high-altitude winds that navigate the upper reaches of the thin atmospheric envelope. These icy veils are a reminder that even in a world defined by aridity, the ingredients for weather and moisture are still present in microscopic quantities. Their presence can affect the surface temperature by reflecting a tiny fraction of the incoming sunlight back into space, contributing to the complex climate models we build from afar. As these clouds drift, they cast long, barely perceptible shadows that slide across the rolling dunes and jagged ridges of the basin. The rovers watch them with mechanical patience, tracking their frequency and movement to better understand the global water cycle of the planet. They are the only moving things in the sky besides the distant sun, adding a sense of depth and motion to an otherwise frozen and silent world. Surprisingly, the calm and predictable rhythm of the seasons can be shattered by atmospheric events of a truly planetary and terrifying scale. Global dust storms occasionally swallow the entire planet, initiated by localized heat pockets that spiral out of control and lift massive amounts of fine particulate matter into the upper atmosphere. These storms can grow until they wrap around the entire globe, turning the sky a deep, impenetrable amber and blotting out the sun for weeks or even months at a time. During these events, the familiar landmarks of the crater disappear behind a thick, suffocating wall of reddish-brown haze. The midday sun is reduced to a dim, sickly pale disk that provides almost no warmth or light to the surface below. The environment becomes a monochromatic world of shadows, where the air itself feels heavy with the weight of billions of tons of suspended iron oxide. Notice the rhythmic flow of your breath and the absolute stillness of your limbs as you rest, safe from the turbulent winds of the far-off desert. While the storms rage above, the ground remains strangely quiet, as the thin air lacks the density to create the howling gales we associate with storms on Earth. It is a visual apocalypse, a silent drowning in a sea of dust that completely redefines the landscape of the Red Planet. Deep within the heart of the solar-powered explorers, a desperate and automated survival instinct is triggered by the encroaching amber darkness of a planetary storm. Because these rovers rely entirely on the sun for their life-sustaining energy, the loss of direct light is a catastrophic threat to their continued operation. They are programmed to endure these dark periods by shutting down all non-essential functions and waiting in a state of deep, shivering hibernation. The machine enters a period of profound silence, turning off its cameras, its heaters, and its scientific instruments to save every precious milliwatt of power. It sits perfectly still in the gloom, a metallic ghost waiting for the sky to clear while the temperatures drop to dangerous metal-shattering levels. This period of dormancy is a tense and uncertain time for the teams on Earth, who can do nothing but wait for a signal that may never come. Every day of the storm is a battle of attrition against the cold, as the internal batteries slowly drain to keep the most vital circuits from freezing solid. The rover becomes a passive observer of its own potential demise, locked in a dark and dusty prison until the atmosphere finally begins to settle. It is a testament to the fragility of our technology when faced with the overwhelming and indifferent power of a planetary-scale weather system. The gradual clearing of a planetary dust storm brings a slow return of power that feels like waking softly from a long and suffocating dream. As the heavy amber haze begins to thin, the first weak rays of sunlight eventually reach the dust-covered solar panels, initiating a slow and miraculous electrical resurrection. This return of energy is measured in tiny increments, as the charging systems slowly rebuild the depleted reserves needed to wake the computer brain. Each morning, the rover attempts to reach out to the orbiting satellites, sending a faint and hopeful ping to signal that it has survived the darkness. The first successful transmission is met with immense relief by the creators on Earth, marking the end of a period of terrifying silence. As the sky returns to its familiar salmon-pink hue, the rover begins the long process of cleaning its sensors and preparing for the return to its scientific mission. The landscape that emerges from the storm is often subtly changed, with new ripples in the sand and a fresh coating of dust on every rock. The rover itself is now a deeper shade of red, its gleaming surfaces hidden beneath the fine silt of the planetary event. This awakening is a moment of profound resilience, a mechanical victory over the cold and the dark that has lasted for eons. This structure of shifting weather is meticulously tracked by sensitive atmospheric sensors that never stop their vigilant and silent monitoring of the air. These instruments constantly measure the falling air pressure as the seasons shift, recording the subtle movements of the gases that make up the thin Martian atmosphere. Because the polar caps freeze and thaw with the changing year, a significant portion of the planet's air literally disappears into ice and then returns as gas. This massive migration of carbon dioxide causes the global air pressure to rise and fall in a predictable rhythmic wave that affects the entire planet. The rovers record these changes with high precision, mapping the way the air thins and thickens as the seasons march forward. These readings are the pulse of the planet's climate, providing the raw data needed to understand the global circulation of the winds. As the pressure changes, seasonal winds begin to shift their direction, carving new patterns into the dust and moving the dunes with agonizing slowness. The sensors feel the air brushing past the rover's mast, capturing the invisible currents that shape the world over the course of centuries. Through this constant measurement, we can hear the breathing of the planet, a slow and deep inhalation and exhalation that spans the duration of the Martian year. Thermal inertia readings provide a unique and fascinating insight into how the planetary surface interacts with the meager energy of the distant sun. By measuring the temperature of the ground throughout the day and night, the rovers can determine how quickly the sand and rocks lose their heat after the sun dips below the horizon. Fine, powdery dust loses its warmth almost instantly, while solid bedrock holds onto its thermal energy for much longer, acting like a planetary battery. These readings allow scientists to see beneath the surface, identifying the composition of the soil without ever having to dig into it. They reveal hidden layers of rock buried beneath the sand and help the navigators identify the safest paths for the heavy wheels to travel. The thermal map of the crater is a patchwork of warm and cold, a hidden landscape that is only visible through the infrared eyes of the machine. Feel the natural warmth of your own hands and the steady, comforting heat of your body as you relax into the peace of your current moment. On the red planet, this heat is a fleeting and precious resource, disappearing rapidly into the vacuum of space as soon as the light fades. The rovers watch the cooling of the world with mechanical precision, recording the slow transition from the warmth of the day to the lethal chill of the night. Moving through the warmer months, the landscape becomes inhabited by dancing, ghostly towers of red sand that rise high into the pale sky. Dust devils dance frequently during the heat of the afternoon, created by warm air rising rapidly from the sun-baked soil and spinning into tight, energetic vortices. These swirling columns of dust can reach heights of several miles, moving across the plains with a silent and unpredictable grace that is captured by the rover's cameras. They leave dark, swirling trails across the lighter surface dust, marking the path of their chaotic journey, like the scribbles of a giant invisible hand. These tracks are most visible from orbit, appearing as a complex web of dark lines that crisscross the crater floor after a particularly active afternoon. The rovers often pause their work to record these spirits of the wind, capturing time-lapse movies of the dust devils as they skip and tumble across the horizon. Surprisingly, these vortices are also the primary cleaning service for our mechanical explorers, occasionally sweeping directly over a rover and vacuuming the dust from its solar panels. This accidental interaction can instantly boost the power levels, extending the mission by years through the simple, chaotic motion of the air. They are a beautiful and dynamic part of the Martian weather, adding a sense of wild, natural energy to an otherwise frozen and static world. Electronic eyes watch the sky patiently, recording the strange and mesmerizing celestial dance of the two lumpy, misshapen moons that orbit the planet. Phobos and Deimos are tiny, asteroid-like bodies that move across the heavens with a speed and rhythm that is entirely alien to anyone used to the slow crawl of our own moon. Phobos, the larger of the two, rises and sets twice every single day, racing across the sky so quickly that its motion can be seen in real time. The rovers capture high-resolution images of these moons as they transit across the face of the Sun, creating brief and jagged solar eclipses that dim the light for a few fleeting seconds. These celestial events are used to refine our understanding of the Moon's orbits, which are slowly changing as the gravity of the planet pulls them closer or pushes them away. The images show the moons as dark, potato-shaped silhouettes against the brilliant backdrop of the solar disk. Watching these transits provides a profound sense of the mechanical clockwork of the solar system, a reminder that the rover is a tiny observer in a vast revolving universe. The moons move silently above the dust and the ice, their shadows sliding across the plains where our machines crawl. It is a final, celestial layer of the Martian year, a constant and rhythmic reminder of the immense and beautiful isolation of the world we have chosen to explore. The moons move silently above the dust and the ice, their shadows sliding across the plains where our machines crawl. It is a final, celestial layer of the Martian year, a constant and rhythmic reminder of the immense and beautiful isolation of the world we have chosen to explore. To truly honour this isolation, our robotic emissaries carry miniaturised laboratories hidden deep within their insulated bellies, designed to sniff and taste the intricate chemical makeup of the dirt. These sophisticated instruments act as artificial tongues and noses, translating the silent compositions of minerals into a language that human scientists can finally understand across the void. Instead of merely gazing at the horizon, the machine reaches down into the ancient regolith to sample the microscopic building blocks of the landscape. Every pinch of sand is greeted with the precision of a master apothecary, analysed for the presence of sulfur, nitrogen and phosphorus. This internal inquiry allows us to perceive the environment not just as a visual spectacle, but as a complex chemical tapestry woven over billions of years of planetary history. Through this intimate contact, the isolation of the machine is momentarily bridged by the hard data of physical reality. The rover becomes a surrogate sensor for humanity, tasting a world that has never known the presence of an organic palate. This structure of mechanical inquiry extends beyond simple contact, utilising high-energy physics to illuminate the darkness hidden within the stones. X-ray beams gently bombard rock surfaces, an invisible and focused rain of particles designed to coax out the unique fluorescent signatures of hidden elements. When the high-energy light strikes the mineral lattice, it displaces electrons, forcing the atoms to release a brief and specific glow that serves as a spectral fingerprint. By capturing these fleeting flickers of light, the machine can identify the exact concentrations of iron, manganese and magnesium trapped within the volcanic basalt. It is a form of luminous interrogation, where the rock is forced to reveal its inner identity through the medium of radiation. This technique allows for a non-destructive analysis of the surface, preserving the integrity of the geological specimens while extracting their most valuable data. The resulting map of elemental abundance provides the raw material for our understanding of how the Martian crust differentiated and cooled. Each fluorescent signature is a note in a grand chemical symphony that has been playing in total darkness since the planet's birth. Deep within the metal chassis, a rhythmic whir of a tiny centrifuge signals the start of a more aggressive form of scientific exploration. Tiny soil samples are carefully delivered into microscopic ovens, where they are baked to temperatures that would rival the heat of a volcanic vent. As the minerals are subjected to this gradual intense heat, they release trapped gases and vapours that have been locked away for billions of years. The rhythmic whir of a tiny centrifuge helps sort the grains, ensuring that the most promising materials are targeted for this thermal extraction. As the gases escape the heat, they are funneled into a specialised mass spectrometer that weighs the individual molecules with incredible precision. This process allows scientists to detect the presence of ancient water, carbon dioxide, and even more complex compounds that suggest a more active past. Notice the gentle weight of your own body as it sinks into a state of rest, the air around you warm and supportive in the stillness. Far away, the heat of the rover's internal oven creates a tiny artificial sanctuary, where the secrets of the stones are literally boiled away for inspection. Surprisingly, the dust holds secrets that speak of a world far softer and more welcoming than the one our machines currently inhabit. The discovery of specific clay minerals provided quiet, irrefutable proof that fresh, neutral water once pooled on the surface for extended periods of geologic time. Unlike minerals formed in acidic or ephemeral environments, these phyllosilicates require long-term interaction between water and volcanic rock, suggesting the presence of ancient life-sustaining lakes. These clays were identified by their unique ability to absorb and reflect infrared light, a signature that can only be created by the slow weathering of basalt in a watery embrace. Finding them was like stumbling upon the dried, muddy shores of a long-lost garden, hidden beneath a layer of sterile and oxidized red sand. It shifted our narrative of the planet from one of perpetual drought to a place that once possessed the foundational ingredients for a flourishing biosphere. The presence of these minerals tells a story of a time when the sky was thicker and the climate was warm enough for rain to fall and rivers to flow. Every image of these clay beds is a window into a past that looks remarkably like the early history of our own homeworld. If we were to look closer at the fractures in the bedrock, we would see delicate, brilliant white veins of gypsum crisscrossing the darker stone like a web of frozen light. These structures act as fossilized records of ancient groundwater, flowing through cracks deep beneath the surface eons ago. Gypsum is a mineral that precipitates out of mineral-rich water, leaving behind a hard and enduring trail that outlines the ancient plumbing of the Martian crust. These veins are remarkably similar to those found on Earth, where water moves through subterranean aquifers to create intricate mineral deposits. Their discovery proved that the planet's watery history was not limited to the surface, but extended deep into the dark, subterranean reaches of the soil. The rover's cameras capture the crystalline texture of these deposits, revealing the slow and steady movement of fluids that once animated the dead planet. Take a slow and deep breath, feeling the effortless expansion of your lungs and the steady pulse of your own internal systems. While you rest in the comfort of the present, the rover traces these ancient veins to understand where the water went and how long it lingered. To reach the truth hidden beneath the pervasive red dust, the machine must perform a gentle and persistent act of cleaning. Metal bristles mounted on a specialized brush tool patiently scrub the dust off selected targets, revealing the true, vibrant colors of the rocks beneath for the first time in millions of years. This mechanical grooming is a necessary ritual, as the constant rain of iron oxide particles creates a deceptive uniform coating over every geological feature. Once the dust is cleared away, the rover's eyes are greeted by the deep greys, rich blues, and speckled textures of the unweathered stone. These true colours provide vital clues about the mineralogy and the cooling history of the rocks, which are otherwise obscured by the red veil. The process is slow and rhythmic, a quiet domestic task carried out on a planetary scale to reveal the true face of the wilderness. The sight of a freshly brushed rock is a startling reminder of the diversity hidden within the monochromatic desert. It is as if the machine is polishing the dusty artifacts of a museum to see the original luster of the materials. Each brushed circle on the stone is a clean window into the deep past. The atmosphere itself is a subject of intense chemical scrutiny, as the rover seeks to understand the slow and tragic loss of the planet's ancient air. Isotope ratios in the atmosphere are measured continuously to understand how Mars lost its ancient, thicker envelope to the relentless solar wind. By comparing the concentrations of heavy and light atoms of argon, carbon, and oxygen, scientists can calculate the rate at which the atmosphere has leaked into space over the eons. The lighter versions of these atoms are more easily stripped away by the sun's radiation, leaving behind a higher proportion of the heavier isotopes. Measuring this imbalance is like reading the fading echoes of a conversation that occurred billions of years ago. It tells us that the planet was once shrouded in a much thicker, more protective blanket that could have sustained a stable climate and liquid water. Notice the heavy, secure gravity anchoring you to your place, and the thick, life-giving air that surrounds you without effort. On the red planet, the air is a ghost of its former self, a thin and wispy remnant that the rover analyses with the care of a forensic investigator. Deep within the most promising samples of clay and mudstone, the search for organic molecules is a slow, meticulous process of sorting carbon from the background noise of space. These molecules are the fundamental building blocks of life as we know it, yet their presence on the surface is constantly threatened by intense radiation and highly reactive chemicals. The rover must act with extreme sensitivity, looking for the telltale signatures of complex carbon chains hidden within the mineral matrix. This search is not for living things, but for the chemical fossils of ancient organic matter. The detection of these compounds requires the machine to distinguish between carbon delivered by meteorites and carbon that might have originated from biological processes. It is a detective story on a microscopic scale, where the clues are often just a few molecules of methane or chlorobenzene. The rhythmic whir of a tiny centrifuge accompanies this search, helping to concentrate and isolate the potential organic targets from the surrounding sand. Every positive detection is a heartbeat of hope, a signal that the planet once possessed the necessary ingredients for life. Every scooped handful of soil tells a visceral story of volcanic eruptions and weathering that occurred eons ago, turning the history of the planet into a tangible material. The fine grains are a mixture of shattered basalt, weathered glass, and pulverized minerals that have been tumbled by the wind for millions of years. By analyzing the size, shape, and composition of these particles, the rover can reconstruct the violent events that shaped the crater and the surrounding plains. Some grains show the sharp edges of recent volcanic activity, while others are rounded and smooth. This mixture of materials is a planetary archive, holding the debris from distant mountain ranges and ancient impact craters all in a single pile of dirt. The machine sifts through this archive with tireless mechanical patience, treating every scoop as a precious collection of geological data. Feel the stillness of your limbs and the quiet ease of your mind as you contemplate this distant, dusty inventory of time. The rover's mechanical scoop is a hand reaching across the ages, touching the physical remnants of a world in constant transformation. Through all of these chemical experiments and geological inquiries, these machines are essentially reading the memory of a dead planet page by geological page. They are the first entities to ever look back into the deep history of this world and try to understand the logic of its existence. Each data point, each spectrum, and each chemical analysis is a word in a long and complex narrative of a world that once had the potential to be a brother to our own. The mission is a profound act of empathy and curiosity, ensuring the history of this silent world is not lost. Each data point, each spectrum, and each chemical analysis is a word in a long and complex narrative of a world that once had the potential to be a brother to our own. The mission is a profound act of empathy and curiosity, ensuring the history of this silent world is not lost. This enduring empathy is most physically manifest in the living rooms and command centers of Earth, where human biological clocks are forcibly rewritten to match the heartbeat of a distant world. Rover drivers must live on Martian time, adjusting their sleeping schedules by 40 minutes every day to remain in perfect sync with the alien sunrise. This shifting existence means that their mornings and evenings drift through the earthly week, eventually turning noon into midnight as they follow the steady, slightly slower rotation of the red planet. Within the soft glow of monitors in a darkened control room, these guardians operate in a perpetual state of jet lag, their lives tethered to a sun that rises over a different horizon. It is a quiet sacrifice of earthly routine, a biological surrender to the needs of a machine that wakes when they should be sleeping. The rhythmic flickering of data across their screens becomes the only true calendar that matters, as they wait for the first light to touch the rover's solar panels millions of miles away. Deep within the quiet architecture of the mission, a daily ritual of communication unfolds with the precision of a silent interplanetary clock. Commands are sent once a day, effectively handing the rover a detailed daily itinerary before the human teams must step back and watch the results from a distance. This bundle of instructions contains every turn of a wheel, every snap of a camera, and every precise movement of the robotic arm, plotted with exhaustive care. Once the send button is pressed, the machine is essentially on its own, a solitary explorer following a script written by hundreds of minds. The team watches the signal depart with a mixture of hope and trepidation, knowing they cannot intercede until the next communication window opens many hours later. This daily handoff is a testament to the trust placed in the software and the mechanical integrity of the vehicle. As the command packet traverses the vacuum of space, the control room falls into a state of anticipatory silence, waiting for the first telemetry to return and confirm that the day's goals were met. The rover becomes a surrogate self, carrying out the will of its creators while they are trapped by the physical limitations of their own planet. Surprisingly, the bridge across the void is fraught with a terrifying and unavoidable silence, born from the staggering distance between two worlds. The time delay means a rover could be experiencing a critical emergency, while engineers are completely unaware for several minutes or even longer. By the time the signal of a stuck wheel or a power fault reaches Earth, the machine has already been dealing with the crisis in total isolation. This lag creates a haunting disconnect, where the rover's present is always the engineer's past, a ghost of an event that has already occurred. Notice the gentle weight of your own body as it sinks into a state of rest, the air around you warm and supportive in the stillness. While you rest in the security of your home, the human guardians are grappling with the realization that their information is always a fragment of a history that has already passed. The vacuum of information is a heavy presence in the control room, a reminder of the vastness that separates the creator from the creation. They must build systems that are robust enough to survive the unknown without a direct hand to guide them through the immediate peril. If we were to look closer at the machine's internal logic, we would find a sophisticated intelligence designed to navigate the unknown with remarkable independence. Autonomous navigation software allows the rovers to carefully pick their own path around unexpected boulders and treacherous sand traps that were not visible in orbital maps. The rover effectively dreams of its own route, stopping to analyse the terrain ahead before deciding which way to pivot its heavy chassis. It uses stereo vision to build a three-dimensional map of the rocks, calculating slopes and obstacles with a digital caution that mimics human hesitation. This self-guided movement allows the machine to cover much more ground than it ever could if every inch were manually plotted from Earth. It transforms the rover from a remote-controlled car into a semi-conscious explorer that can react to the immediate reality of its surroundings. The soft glow of monitors in a darkened control room often displays these thinking maps, showing the coloured lines where the software has projected its safe passage. Through this digital foresight, the machine avoids the sharp edges of the landscape, preserving its mobility for the long journey ahead toward the horizon. Before the first wheel ever turns on the Martian soil, every movement is meticulously rehearsed in a simulated sandbox on Earth. In a specialised room filled with dust and rocks that mimic the exact texture of the crater, a full-scale replica rover performs the identical manoeuvres commanded by the team. This physical verification ensures that the commands being transmitted across the void have already been proven safe in a tangible environment. The engineers watch the twin rover struggle over obstacles, adjusting their software until the movement is perfected to the millimetre. Every cliff and incline encountered by the distant explorer is recreated with painstaking accuracy, allowing the drivers to feel the terrain through the surrogate on Earth. This rehearsal is a vital safeguard against the unpredictable nature of the alien surface, a way to test the limits of the hardware without risking the primary mission. The replica sits in its earthly sandbox, a grounded double of the lonely wanderer that is currently navigating the red dust. Feel the quiet stillness of your own room, the air thick and familiar, providing a safe harbour for your thoughts to wander, as you imagine this mechanical mirror. Throughout the long Martian nights, teams of scientists engage in peaceful but intense debates over which interesting rock or ridge to investigate next. These discussions are a delicate dance of balancing insatiable scientific curiosity against the cold, hard reality of remaining battery life and the physical health of the vehicle. Every request to zap a new stone or drill a fresh core must be weighed against the power required to survive the upcoming winter or climb a steep delta. The geologists see a story of ancient water in a layered outcrop, while the engineers see a dangerous slope that could trap the wheels forever. This negotiation is the heart of the mission, a collaborative effort to maximize the scientific return while ensuring the machine lives to see another sunrise. The soft glow of monitors in a darkened control room reflects the faces of experts who have dedicated years to this single project, their eyes bright with the possibility of a new discovery. They reach a compromise that allows for exploration without recklessness, a consensus that moves the mission forward one rock at a time. Every centimetre of progress is the result of 1,000 small decisions, a collective journey toward a shared understanding of another world. The silence that eventually claims every mechanical emissary is not met with indifference, but with a profound and collective sense of loss. The end of a mission is met with solemn reverence as engineers gather to send one final, unanswered ping into the dark. It is a digital goodbye, a final attempt to reach a companion that has travelled millions of miles and survived years of isolation. This final command often hangs in the air of the control room, a lingering note in a song that has finally come to its conclusion after years of daily conversation. High above the main deck, the intricate geometry of the high-gain antenna remains in constant fluid motion throughout the day. These antennas slowly and precisely track the movement of Earth in the Martian sky, ensuring the invisible thread of communication remains unbroken as the two planets move. Even as the rover crawls across the dust, its mechanical ear is always cocked toward the distant blue point of light where its creators reside. This steady orientation is a tether of data, a literal pointing of the finger across the solar system to maintain the connection. The soft glow of monitors in a darkened control room shows the strength of this signal, a thin line that represents the rover's only link to its home. When the alignment is perfect, the data flows in a torrent. When the planet turns, the connection is lost to the bulk of the horizon. This celestial alignment is a reminder of our place in the clockwork of the heavens, a mechanical acknowledgement of the vast orbital distances that define the mission. The antenna's movement is a silent prayer to the void, a persistent reaching for home from the edge of the known universe. This complex conversation is rarely a direct line, but rather a sophisticated game of relay played between the surface and the stars. Data is often relayed through orbiting satellites that pass overhead, creating a complex and silent choreography of orbital mechanics that must be perfectly timed. The rover must wait for the exact window when a satellite is in view to burst its findings upward at incredible speeds. This layered architecture of communication ensures that even when Earth is below the horizon, the data can still find its way back through the orbital network. The satellites act as silent couriers, catching the whispers from the ground and shouting them across the interplanetary vacuum toward the massive dishes on Earth. This system allows for high-bandwidth transmissions of images and scientific data that would be impossible with a direct low-power link. The soft glow of monitors in a darkened control room tracks these orbital passes, showing the precise seconds when the data will begin to trickle in. It is a masterpiece of timing and geometry, a technological web that blankets the red planet and keeps us constantly informed of its secrets. Ultimately, the machines operate with the collective patience and care of thousands of invisible human guardians who dedicate their lives to these mechanical children. From the technicians who build the wheels to the software engineers who write the code, the rover is a vessel for the shared dreams of an entire species. Every successful discovery made in the dust is a shared victory, a proof of what can be achieved when humanity works with a single, focused purpose across continents and oceans. They are the silent partners in the mission, the minds that remain on Earth while their senses explore the mountains of a distant world. As you sink deeper into relaxation, the soft glow of monitors in a darkened control room reflects the enduring flame of human curiosity that has burned for generations. These guardians ensure that the rover is never truly alone, providing the guidance and the care needed to navigate the challenges of the alien environment. Their work is a labour of love, a commitment to expanding our horizons and understanding our place in the cosmos. Through their eyes and their hands, we have touched the red soil and heard the Martian wind, forever changing the way we look at the night sky. The change in our perspective of the night sky reveals a startling reality that has unfolded silently over the last few decades of exploration, where we have effectively seeded a lifeless frozen planet entirely with sophisticated robots. This transformation makes Mars the only known world in the universe inhabited exclusively by machines, a mechanical population that exists in a realm of absolute and eerie quiet. These entities carry out their complex logical routines without any biological interference, competition, or the messy requirements of organic life that define our own world. From the low-slung, microwave-sized scouts that first tasted the dust to the car-sized nuclear behemoths currently prowling the craters, these entities are the true and only residents of the Red Desert. They navigate the ancient floodplains and climb the wind-sculpted hills, their silicon minds calculating paths through a wilderness that has never known the breath of a living creature for billions of years. This digital colonization represents a profound shift in the history of our solar system, where a world once defined purely by geological violence is now mapped by the precise and persistent telemetry of artificial travelers. Operating within this robotic society is a paradox of extreme cleanliness, enforced by the terrifying possibility of accidental contamination across the vast interplanetary void that separates our two worlds. These rovers look for signs of ancient or extant biology, while having been meticulously sterilized in earthly cleanrooms to prevent any hitchhiking microbes from contaminating the search they were sent to conduct. Every surface was scrubbed with alcohol, treated with intense ultraviolet light, and baked in high-temperature ovens before launch to ensure that any organic trace found in the soil is truly alien in origin. This scientific purity is essential to the integrity of the mission, as the discovery of a single terrestrial bacterium could lead to a false positive that would echo through the history books for generations. We send our most advanced technology to search for the secrets of life, yet we must strip that technology of any living connection to the world that created it. The machine stands on the surface as a sterile emissary, a vacuum-sealed observer that can touch the rocks without ever truly belonging to the environment it studies. Notice how your own breathing remains a soft, rhythmic tide, a reminder of the soft and fleeting nature of biological existence compared to the rigid, unyielding cold of metal. These mechanical children possess a kind of synthetic immortality, built to last far longer than the fleeting organic bodies of the men and women who designed, built, and launched them into the dark. While their creators age and their earthly lives change, the rovers remain encased in their titanium shells, their internal systems designed to withstand radiation and temperature swings that would be lethal to any human explorer. Many of the visionary engineers who saw the first footprints in the dust have already moved on, yet the tracks they helped create remain as fresh and sharp as the day they were first stamped. This disparity creates a strange transgenerational legacy where the machines become the enduring and silent witnesses of human ambition across the eons of space and time. They are our permanent representatives in the void, outlasting the hands that built them and the eyes that first watched their data trickles in from the deep black. Surprisingly, a rover has absolutely no concept of its own isolation or the staggering millions of miles of empty space that separate it from its homeworld. It carries out its commands with a cold, logical indifference, moving through the hollow canyons without ever feeling the weight of the silence or the bite of the lethal cold. Yet, for the humans who watch the data on their screens in darkened rooms, These machines evoke a deep and undeniable sense of loneliness that mirrors our own primal fears of the dark. We see the solitary silhouette of the rover against a salmon-colored sunset, and we project our own need for companionship and survival onto its unblinking electronic cameras. This emotional resonance is a purely human invention, a bridge of empathy that transforms a piece of hardware into a heroic, solitary wanderer in the void. We feel for the machine precisely because it cannot feel for itself, carrying our hopes into a wilderness that offers no comfort and no voice in return for its dedicated service. If we were to look closer at the true purpose of these machines, we would see that they are far more than just cold observers or digital photographers sent to a dead world. They are true extensions of our own biological senses, allowing us to touch, see, and even hear a world we cannot yet physically reach with our own fragile and limited bodies. Through their eyes, we perceive the subtle, shifting hues of the Martian sunset. Through their robotic arms, we feel the hardness of ancient mudstone and the grit of volcanic sand. They provide a sensory presence that transcends the immense limitations of spaceflight, turning the distant and abstract into something tangible, real, and intimately known to our species. We inhabit these machines as we guide them, our minds projecting into their metallic frames until their experiences become our own memories and their discoveries become our shared history. They are the peripheral nervous system of humanity, reaching out into the dark to gather the textures and rhythms of a world that would otherwise remain a silent and unreachable mystery. Feel the deep, stable stillness of your own body, anchored firmly to the ground as the world continues its slow and predictable rotation around the distant stars. As time marches forward across the centuries, the older rovers sit frozen in time, slowly becoming part of the very geology they were originally sent to study and document. Their batteries are dead, and their internal heaters have long since failed, allowing the brutal cold to claim their circuits and lock them permanently into the landscape. Dust slowly settles over their cameras and fills the gaps in their chassis, blending their sharp, artificial edges with the rounded boulders and jagged ridges of the crater floor. They have transitioned from being active explorers to being stationary features of the Martian terrain, metallic fossils resting in the sediment of the ancient dried-up lake beds. Future dust storms will continue this slow process of burial, eventually encasing the machines in a layer of red silt that will preserve their forms for an eternity. They are returning to the planet not as life, but as a new and permanent kind of technological mineral added to the crust. Deep within the future of our species, there may come a day when human boots finally strike the red soil in the vicinity of these ancient and silent landing sites. Future human explorers may one day stumble upon these silent pioneers, treating them as sacred historical artifacts from the dawn of the interplanetary age of discovery. They will find the rovers resting in the canyons, their aluminum wheels torn and their solar panels dulled by the relentless passage of the Martian centuries. These machines will be viewed with the same reverence we reserve for the first sailing ships or the earliest stone tools, symbols of a time when we first dared to cross the ocean of the void. Museums may one day be built around these sites, preserving the tracks and the hardware as monuments to the incredible persistence of human curiosity. They will stand as physical proof that we were here long before we could breathe the air, marking the beginning of our transformation into a truly multi-planetary species. This structure of connection between man and machine is so profound that we find it impossible to view our explorers with purely scientific detachment or cold logic. We project our own deepest emotions onto these machines, grieving with a surprising and visceral intensity when their batteries finally run dry and the screens go dark for the last time. When a mission ends, it is not just a loss of data or a hardware failure, but the death of a companion that has shared our daily lives for years or even decades. We give them names like Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity, and in doing so, we invite them into our collective family and our shared history. This grief is a testament to the power of the journey. a recognition that these machines have been our eyes and ears in a place of great beauty and profound danger. Their final signals are met with heartfelt tributes, an emotional surrender to the fact that our most loyal scouts can no longer follow us further into the dark. Through these mechanical avatars, humanity has already achieved a quiet and permanent presence on the red soil that can never be fully erased by the winds of time. We have bypassed the physical constraints of our own biology by sending these emissaries to live and work where we cannot, establishing a foothold in the solar system that will endure for millions of years. Mars is no longer a distant, unreachable point of light in the night sky, but a world where our footprints are already etched into the stone and our art is already resting in the dust. Even if we never set foot there ourselves, the rovers have ensured that our stories and our science are now a part of the permanent planetary record. They are the vanguard of a new era, the metallic seeds of a future where the boundary between the two worlds has been permanently blurred. The profound stillness of an immobile metal chassis resting permanently in a vast empty canyon is not a sign of failure, but a final, silent victory of the human spirit. In building eyes of glass and wheels of wire to wander the lonely dust, we have not only reached out to touch the ancient memory of another world, but discovered the boundless reach of our own quiet longing. In building eyes of glass and wheels of wire to wander the lonely dust, we have not only reached out to touch the ancient memory of another world, but discovered the boundless reach of our own quiet longing. This final realization ties every footprint and every data point into a single, profound story of humanity reaching into the unknown. By sending our curiosity into the void, we have effectively turned the entire solar system into a shared home of the mind. Deep within this moment of profound stillness, the journey across the red plains finally settles into the soft, heavy reality of your own body. As the distant rovers enter their eternal hibernation, let your attention drift down to the very tips of your toes. Feel the weight of your feet as they rest, completely disconnected from the need to travel or the urge to climb any further across the ancient dust. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to surrender to the pull of gravity, anchoring you safely to the surface beneath you, just as the heavy machines are anchored to the crater floor. The tension in your ankles dissolves like fine silt settling after a long-forgotten atmospheric storm has finally passed. Your calves and shins grow heavy and warm, sinking deeper into the soft support of the mattress as if they are becoming part of the landscape themselves. If we were to look closer at the sensation of rest, we find that the knees are releasing all the accumulated effort of the long, rugged day. The large muscles of your thighs become loose and still, mirroring the immobility of the metal chassis resting permanently in a vast, silent canyon. Every fibre of your legs is now at peace, a quiet monument to a journey that has reached its final, restful destination. This quiet room is a sanctuary where the vastness of the outside world can no longer reach you or demand your attention. Your hips and lower back expand and soften, spreading out against the sheets in a gesture of absolute unburdened trust. A slow, steady rhythm takes hold in your abdomen, a rising and falling tide that requires no effort and no thought to maintain. The air moves in and out of your lungs with a rhythmic, effortless grace that feels like a soft, invisible weight pressing you deeper into sleep. This quiet room holds you in a blanket of absolute safety and unchanging calm that has no beginning and no end. Your chest rises and falls like a gentle wave, carrying away any remaining thoughts or worries into the velvet dark of the night. A profound stillness washes over your jaw, allowing the tongue to rest and the features of your face to smooth out completely. The eyelids are heavy, sealed shut by a comforting and unyielding desire for restorative rest. Even the scalp and the forehead release their last remnants of tension, leaving only a sense of boundless, airy peace that fills the room. The darkness feels like a physical embrace, a soft and silent medium that invites you to drift further into the depths of your own mind. Thoughts become slow and hazy, dissolving into the quiet humming of the evening. You are perfectly grounded, perfectly still, and perfectly ready to let the world go for a few hours of peace. The breath is a slow and steady anchor, pulling you deeper into the velvet folds of a dreamless and healing slumber. Everything is quiet, everything is still, and everything is exactly as it should be in this sanctuary. The mattress supports every inch of your frame, providing a foundation of absolute and unwavering peace for your soul. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.